I have indeed. Thank you for asking. So, Mom had her 80th birthday on Friday, and for her birthday, we got her the best birthday gift the day before on Thursday, which is getting her COVID vaccine. And I have to tell you that despite all of the drama around Wednesday and signing people up, we got 72,000 seniors signed up in one day, and that's a small miracle. And when I got to the immunization clinic, it was beautifully set up. We were in and out of there in probably 35 minutes. And everyone was just so happy. The seniors were so happy. And I felt I felt something I haven't felt in a year. And that is hope. And so I really encourage those seniors who have not yet signed up to go ahead and do so. Let's get through this phase quickly, and let's get to phase 2 as soon as we can. I think a cautious move forward is justified in what we're talking about. Yesterday's number, maybe it was a blip, 415 new cases. But if it's not a blip, that means we've quadrupled the number of new cases almost in just over a week. And so that's actually very, very troubling. And so if I were the provincial government, I might wait just a couple more days to see if that's a trend that is setting in, or if that was just a blip before making any decisions.
To stay on topic of that, sir.
Everything's on topic for me.
Has the city made any thoughts known to the province in terms of whether it wants its peace officers to continue being involved in enforcement?
Yes, we were quite surprised to have received a note from the government saying 7 hours from now the enforcement is no longer in place. And so I pushed back at the highest levels, as did others, and I received notification on Friday that the Ministry of Justice has a recommendation to reinstate that authority, but I haven't heard anything about whether that's going to happen or not.
And was that for ones and twos?
It has to be for ones and twos, or it doesn't make any sense. No, I have not heard back yet, but when I made my case, let's put it this way, parts of the province that are not the Ministry of Justice were very surprised that that would happen.
I want to ask about the anti-racism motion.
Yes?
What in effect does it do? Or is it just something that conversation?
Well, symbols matter. Certainly the torch symbol matters. And I think it's important that council unanimously condemn that kind of thing happening on the front steps of City Hall, because it is wrong. And we're not stupid. We know what those torches mean. And every person of color knows exactly what that means. So don't tell me it was to provide lights. I am called upon as a person of faith to provide light in dark corners every single day. You don't provide light by spreading hate. And we know exactly what that is. Why did the Klan march with torches? They used them to light the crosses on fire. And let's be very clear that that is not anything that is ever acceptable here in the city of Calgary. So I was very happy that my colleagues took the lead on that they pushed hard and unanimously passed that condemnation. And this does matter because it sets a societal expectation. It sets an expectation for the police, it sets expectations generally for what kind of behavior is acceptable and what isn't. And I think it's important for council to stand up and do that.
Do you think there needs to be some limitation in terms of the municipal plaza bylaw, in terms of what can happen out there?
Deja vu, always everything comes back again. It was several years ago, in fact, spurred on by the exact same people who are doing this now, where we really looked hard at what was and wasn't allowed to happen at Municipal Plaza. In fact, we're very permissive because we want the Municipal Plaza to be a gathering place for people to be able to express their views. So you don't need a permit. You can come and spend time there expressing your views. And before all this happened, there was usually people out there every Friday and Saturday. On Friday, we have climate strikers. And Saturdays, we typically had people from different diverse communities expressing their views on things going on around the world. And really, it's been a bit wrecked by these folks in terms of that ideal of people being able to come and express their views. So I'm happy to look at the municipal complex bylaw again and see if there's anything else in there that we can do to make sure that this sort of thing doesn't look like it's being endorsed by the city. Oh. Hang on. Did you want to follow up on that?
Sorry, it was just another question. We spoke to a Black Lives Matter, someone with the Black Lives Matter group who was here during that protest. They basically say that police had corralled them and basically stopped them from doing their march in protest of these anti-mask groups. They say that the anti-mask group was able to walk down Stephen Avenue, do their thing, but they were not. Basically saying, you know, so to speak, that they were, that police were picking a side. What do you have to say in response to that? And can council do anything to review some of that and how it was handled by bylaw and police?
Well, look, I have to start by saying being a police officer in a situation like that is difficult. And it's very volatile, and you want to make sure that things don't escalate. And I will say that I was in constant contact over the course of that afternoon with the police chief, with our security, with the head of bylaw, understanding what was going on, and that is not my interpretation of what happened. I wasn't here, but my interpretation of what happened is that police did a nice job keeping the groups separate during the protest phase, and in fact allowed the anti-racism protesters to sort of take over the City Hall Plaza at some point, but that they were very nervous about what happens when the groups are mobile. It's more difficult to keep confrontation from happening. So my understanding was that they let the marches both happen, but separately. And at least that's what I'm told was supposed to happen. And look, this is hard, and we're all going to criticize it, but I don't wear a uniform, and I don't have to deal with this on the street. And certainly, while I have very difficult questions, I want to also respect the hard job that the women and men who are just trying to keep the peace are doing. Sorry, Madeline?
No, that's my bad. Last week, and this is a changing topic, Finance Minister Tweeds told one of my colleagues that he would suggest that the province shouldn't have a specific program for office vacancies and so what's your response to that, given the challenges that you see with that change?
Well, I think you need to ask part two of that question, which is today in your newspaper, the Minister of Jobs and Innovation and Economy talked about how it's a major priority for the province to help fill downtown vacancies in Calgary. So I think you'd be forgiven, as I am, for thinking as I do, that this government is rather incoherent in its response. Because of course, Mr. Tave's comments to the Calgary Chamber were ridiculous. You can't have economic growth in Alberta, which I presume is his bailiwick, without fixing the problem of downtown Calgary. You can't have one without the other. I think he was saying they're not interested in actual tax incentives for people to move downtown, but that wasn't the question that was asked. And so I think we deserve to have a finance minister. He's been largely absent during COVID, so I presume he's been working on all this stuff. So I think we deserve to have a finance minister who understands the economic constraints of the city. Meanwhile, we have the Minister of Jobs, Innovation and Economy saying this is a major thing, and his response is, let's have town halls for the next 4 or 5 months. Well, Minister, with all due respect, welcome to the party. We're happy to have you, and we need your help. We don't need town halls for the next 4 to 5 months. We've been working on this for years. Business owners have spoken, business owners who are here, business owners who want to be here. We will be presenting a downtown strategy to council in the next few weeks here based on all of that input. And we're really happy to have the province on board, but don't reinvent the wheel. Don't pretend that you're going to lead this because you've suddenly learned about it. Join with the work that's already been done by hardworking business owners and by the municipal government.
So what's the rationale behind a smaller one-time rebate and a $30 million fund to help businesses who need it?
All right, here we go. So my challenge with so what we have done, let me back up. In November, council approved basically a property tax freeze for all businesses on top of last year's 10% cut in property taxes for businesses. However, there were a certain number of businesses that were still seeing a big increase, mostly large format warehouses that supply big box stores and online retailers, because they've done very well during COVID. And so their value commensurately has gone up. Last week, Councillor Farkas suggested we've got money in the bank. Why should it be sitting in the bank when it can go to help businesses? And I agreed with that. But his solution was, at that time, let's just give everyone a rebate who's above 10%, get them down to 0. And council sort of looked at that and said, well, that money is really going to benefit these multinational firms and these big box retailers who've actually done well during COVID. So we're really kind of messing with the market. But if we're willing to take that money out of the bank and spend it for the benefit of businesses, let's do that. And so that's what council decided today, that they will continue the 10% cap. So the average business will see no increase and no business will see over 10%. But also that we are going to set aside some money for a program that will directly help businesses that have been impacted by COVID. And I was pleased to see that. Now, the devil's in the details. I don't know what that program is going to look like, but I'm happy to spend money on that.
Do you have any concerns that it will be cumbersome and difficult to get the money out the door and actually have amounts that mean something to an individual business?
Those are exactly the questions that we need to answer. How do we cut red tape and how do we make this meaningful? The good news is back in 2018, we did a bunch of work on this. Ultimately, council chose not to move forward on it, but it's time to dust that off and see if there's a good solution there.
I have another quick question about another item coming up later today about the development in Chaparral way down south.
Yes.
There's been some concerns from residents who live there right now saying that, well, A, it's going to block their view of this new development, but most importantly, flooding could be an issue. What do you say about saying to those people who live there who are concerned about this development?
So council had an extensive public hearing on this issue when it came to us, and we agreed that, well, first of all, there is no right to a view, unfortunately, and people lose views all the time. However, council did in fact say, you know what, we're going to approve this in principle, but we're going to send the developer back to see if they can address some of the questions on flooding and the questions on view. So my understanding is that they have reallocated the development a little bit so people's views will be less impacted, and that they have done a bunch of flooding studies that show that this won't be a problem, and that the City of Calgary's administration concurs. That said, I've been down this road before with golf courses and flooding, and so I'll have some tough questions for City administration today before making my vote.
Just
Anyone
one
else?
other quick one.
Yes.
I apologize because the question's on my phone, which is right there. There was a lot of pictures on the weekend with social media, especially around the river pathway near Memorial Drive. Is there talk with the weather getting nicer? I mean, is there talk that maybe perhaps one of those programs with like expanding the sidewalks, is that something that's going to be coming up?
Yes, very much so. You know, our plan always was that depending on demand, we would bring back what we were calling the COVID adaptive roadways, particularly on the weekends. This weekend is meant to be beautiful. So I'll be suggesting to our roads department that particularly on Memorial Drive and the river pathway, it may be time to bring that back. All right. Thank you, everybody.